Hello, Bluegrass music theory students. It's great to be with you today. And I'm super excited about this course. I'm super excited about the possibilities that these ideas will bring to you and your music and your career. And I want to begin our discussions essentially by asking some central questions to the course. We have to understand the value of this course before we're going to be able to really reap all of the benefits. The first question that I would ask is, why does music theory matter? That's question number one, and we're going to come back to each of these. Number two, are Eurocentric theoretical models still relevant to our music today, and are they particularly relevant to vernacular music forms such as bluegrass music? And number three, if we do buy into the fact that music theory is valuable to us in our music and our practices and our aspirations, then the next question is, how do we benefit from such formalized music theory coursework? We're going to come back to those questions here in a few minutes as we do our group exercise. But to begin with, I want to talk about one of the key aspects of our performance practice, the improvisatory nature. Improvisation is crucial to bluegrass music performance. It's been with us since the beginning of bluegrass music, since Earl Scruggs joined Bill Monroe's band in the middle 1940s. And it's expected. The fans expect us to improvise, and it's part of what makes this music special and unique. To improvise, as some would describe it, is to compose, recite, play, or sing extemporaneously. In other words, as improvisers, we are expected to compose as we perform in real time. We're expected to do this instantaneously. And this, again, is a key aspect of our performances. It's part of the style. It's something that fans expect. It's something that musicians expect. And it brings great satisfaction to us as artists and innovators. The next question, of course, that may be coming into your mind as we're thinking about improvisation is, well, how do I do that? How do I create music on the spot? How do I know what notes to play? Are there right notes? Are there wrong notes? And if so, what are those notes? The answer to that question is, of course, highly subjective. There are many different definitions of music. Kip Lornell, the highly regarded folk music scholar, characterized music as any complex of vocal or instrumental sound that is organized in a manner agreed upon by members of a particular racial or ethnic or regional group. Which is a great definition. It essentially says that music can be what we want it to be. It means that our opinions matter and our tastes matter and our upbringing, our culture matters when we form our definitions of music. It's up to us to decide what is musical. That said, there are certain universal elements of music, things that we expect, things that we need to, for most of us, to qualify certain sounds and those combinations of sounds as music. Specifically, we need a balancing of tensions, of musical tensions, things we call dissonances, with a consonant sound. So it's the interplay between dissonant and consonant sounds. Some might consider that basically the degree of mismatch to the degree of match of sounds that are going on at the same time. For instance, if I were to grab up my guitar right here, I might say these notes tend to sound good together. I'm playing a G major chord. Now if I play a note that's close to that G major chord, like the A sounds pretty good. It doesn't sound as predictable as the first chord form, but if I play, for instance, maybe an E flat note, that's way off. That's a lot of tension right there. So typically, most groups of people will not agree on that being a musical sound, or at least not a sound that you want to stay on long term. So we're talking about the degree of match or mismatch, one might say, sonically. And I'd like to take that concept just a little further and apply this to a real world scenario. And so I want you to kind of envision, and I'm going to show you a picture of this, a wall that is covered up with tile, red tile and green tile. And it's kind of in a checkered pattern. Now, if we look at this wall, Everything seems to line up. There's no one particular part of the wall that stands out more than another part. So that's pretty much the idea of sounds coming together. That's what we expect. But suppose someone were to break one of the tiles, or one of the tiles were to fall off, it were to chip off, and we had to think about replacing the tile. And we go to the local hardware store to buy another tile, and the green tile is gone. They don't have the green or the red tile. In this case, we're looking at red, but the red tile is missing. They're out of red tile. So we might try some other colors. Now, if you'll notice right here, as we go through the colors, we can go through blue, we can go through orange, we can go through black, we can go through kind of a dark red, or we can put a green in here. And what you're going to find is, in each case, the further away that this color is from the other colors, the more it draws our eye, the more it attracts our attention. That can be good, that can be bad, but it certainly gives it a unique flavor. And that's pretty much, in a very, very simplified analogy, describing what happens as we improvise, as we choose our tones. Now, there are many different places that we can get our notes from to solo with. But I want to talk today about a fairly rudimentary approach, a scale-based approach, and there are a couple ways that people tend to look at scales as far as choosing notes to solo with. One is essentially what we would call the chord-based approach. So as you can see, when we're choosing the chord scale approach, that is, we're basically playing one scale for every single chord. And I'm going to demonstrate this here in a few moments, but the idea is if I'm going to a C chord, I'm playing a C scale with all natural notes. If I'm going to a G chord, I'm playing an F sharp and all naturals. So I'm playing the key signature of that chord. And then, of course, there's also the parent scale approach, which is much more practical, and it's the one that I tend to use most of the time. The idea is essentially that we try to choose a scale that matches, if possible, all of the chords in the given chord progression. So we're looking at diatonic progressions, progressions where the key signature does not change, where there are no borrowed chords. This is just a good place for us to begin with in our studies. So as you can see, it's just much, much easier on the ears and certainly easier on the mind if we don't have to think every single chord as a separate scale. In other words, if I can group the chords together within one scale, thinking diatonically, I'm in the key of G, I'm going to A minor, I'm going to B minor, I'm going to C, I'm going to G, and I'm going to D, and back and forth. All those chords are part of the G scale. So the first solo, I was having to go back and forth between F and F sharp. I went... But if you notice the second time, it was much more seamless because I didn't have to change notes at all. I pretty much just stayed in a G scale. I went. Much easier again on the mind, easier on the ears as well. So for a seamless transition, always try to choose the simplest scale choice possible. Finally, in conclusion to this lecture, students will divide up into groupings of 4 or 5 students, per the directions of the instructor, to debate the merits of music theory as it applies to bluegrass music. They will answer the 3 questions stated at the beginning of this interview, and upon completion of this discussion, the groups will elect one student as a representative to brief the class as to that group's specific conclusions and recommendations regarding the study of music theory, again, as it applies to bluegrass music.